today I figure while a new video is sort of preparing, while I'm stuck here waiting for the computer to work its magic, I figure I haven't answered some of your questions for a while, so we'll do a few. So here comes the first one. How many languages can you speak? It depends how fluently you mean. So I can speak, obviously French is my first language. I'm fluent in English, so bilingual French-English. I speak enough German to teach it up to year 9, and I can get by in German if I need to. Funnily enough, in German, I've learned to talk about deep intellectual subjects more than I have learned to talk about daily important things. So I'd probably struggle to order a pizza, but I can talk about existential crisis in German, which is stupid, and I need to work on that. So eventually I'm hoping, and maybe if I say that in a video and put it online, I will do it, just like the Brave the Shave, which I had to make public before I managed to do it. So eventually I'm hoping to study for a German GCSE and then maybe sit the German GCSE. That'd be cool, because I have exams from France in German, but I don't have English exams in German, if that makes sense. I go to Spanish club every week, so I'm learning Spanish. I can understand a lot of Italian if I see it written. And that's because I forgot to mention my actual third language is Latin, so I can read Latin pretty well, and that helps me understand a lot of Italian if I hear or see it, and I can figure out some amount of Dutch because I know German and English, and because I'm from the north of France near the Belgian border, and I think that might have helped me pick up some bits and pieces for Dutch. So French, English, German, Latin, Spanish I'm learning, Italian and Dutch I can sort of figure out just because I know other languages. And that's ridiculously little on a world scale. Like, if you're impressed by that, maybe you haven't met enough people, because most people in the world speak several languages, and loads of people speak a lot more than, 2 languages very fluently and 3 okay, and can sort of dabble into. Languages are really easy to pick up once you start. The hardest ones to pick up are your first one, really, and then the second one possibly. But the more you add, the easier it gets, which is counterintuitive, but that's how it works. What do you teach more a week, French or German? I unfortunately teach more French. I'm saying unfortunately because for the past 3 or 4 years, I think, I've only taught about 2 hours of German a week. And this year it's only year 8, so I miss it. I miss teaching year 9 German. I miss looking at tenses in German. I miss expanding and building paragraphs in German. I really like teaching German. And also, obviously, like anything you don't use, I feel like I'm getting rusty. So like this year, for the first time, I've been able to teach the school topic in German. And I was like, this hasn't happened in the past 3 or 4 years. I'm so excited. This is so cool. And there are some things we are looking at this year I've never actually taught in the 6 years I've been in this school, because I didn't happen to have the school years that we need to teach that. So I'm excited, and I'm really hoping next year I will get more German hours, because I really miss teaching German. And 6 years ago, I would never have thought I would think that. 6 years ago, I was petrified at the thought of teaching German. So it's pretty cool to see that with time, I'm now at a stage where I really want to teach more of that. How many numbers can you count to in French? I don't know, because I've never bothered trying to count as high as I can go. And the question asked me to go in French, but we could be here a while, so I'm sorry, but I don't really fancy doing it. 1 trillion était égal à 1000 milliards avant la réforme de 1948. 1 trillion est égal à 1 million à la puissance 3. Anyway, I figure in any language, once you get past a certain number, you can just carry on infinitely, can't you? You just do to the power of something, maybe. I don't know. So, another question. In how many different languages can you count to 10? I don't know. French, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. German, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Obviously English, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In Spanish, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I always forget 10. Yes. I don't even know in Latin. I mean, it's unum, duo, probably something like tres or tri, quattro, something quinque or something like that. So I can't really count to Latin. I'll recognize the numbers if I see them and if I need them. I don't know how to count up to 10 in Italian. So I think probably like 4.5, because I can recognize some Latin. I mean, I'd recognize Italian numbers, I just can't say them. So, yep. Do you know much sign language? So I've learned a little bit of British Sign Language when I was training in Oakhampton School. There was a club and I joined it and I learned some British Sign Language. So I don't speak much of it. I've lost a lot of it because I haven't used it. But when I teach a subject that lends itself well to mime, I often try to find out the British Sign Language gesture for what we're learning in French or in German, and then I use that gesture, so I figure out. Most of the time they're quite sensible and logical, so they help fix the word into our memory because we've moved. And I also figure it's two birds, one stone. You learn a word in French or German and you learn the British Sign Language at the same time, which is pretty neat. But I don't know a lot of it. Are you ever going to reveal that you're an alien? Flute. Well, that's out now. Ça c'est fait. Nächste Frage. Ein bisschen. Favorite band? That's a very difficult question. I listen to a lot of different artists, bands, songs, French, English, and German. And what I like to do is, I use Spotify. And so every time I hear something I like it. And then now I have hundreds of titles on my liked playlist. And it's just random, so I can't say. I like Simple Plan. They've sang some song in French as well as English. When I was a teenager, I listened to Kyo quite a bit. I listened to Madame K. I listened to what's their name? Trio was another one I used to listen to. I don't know. I like Nolwenn Leroy and Chimène Badi because they have gorgeous voices. Jean-Jacques Goldman makes beautiful songs. He writes amazing lyrics. I like Renaud. He's getting a bit old now, but I like Renaud. His lyrics are pretty good as well. I don't know. I don't tend to have one favorite anything. I like too many things, and diversity is what I really like. So if I had to choose one single thing for any category, films, books, music, I'd be really miserable. What do you like the most about England? I like the language, obviously. I've liked the people I've met. I've lived in Somerset and Devon, and I've found people really nice and pleasant. I like how easy it was to be a vegetarian in England. When I left France, it was really difficult to be a vegetarian. And even a few years after, when I went back to France, if we went to a restaurant, it was really difficult to find vegetarian food. So I like in England, it's easy to be a vegetarian. What I like with England is, I don't think it's down to England itself. I think it was just that I needed to go, I needed to leave home. I needed to distance myself from the life I'd lived so far and from the people that knew me, because I wasn't very happy with the person I was. And it was difficult to change who I was with all of the people around me who treated me like the person I was. So I needed to take some distance, have a fresh start, and meet new people that had no idea who I was. And then I could just, I don't know if that makes sense. I could start over and decide. When I moved to Somerset, I made conscious decisions about what type of a person I wanted to be, and then I tried every day to behave like the type of person I wanted to be and to align with the values I have. And so what I like about England is that it freed me from mistakes I'd made before and from a gap between my values and the way I lived. And I guess it would have been the same if I'd moved anywhere else. I just needed to get away from the place I grew up to feel free to experiment and feel free to break the mold of who I had been thus far. I hope that makes sense, and I feel like that went a little bit deep. We're getting to 11 minutes, but there's only about 4 more papers, so we can carry on, and then if you get bored, you can always click away, I guess, so it's fine. What was school like in France? I don't know if you mean if you want to have an idea of the main differences between the French and English school system, or if you mean what was school in France for me personally, so I'll try and cover both. I think the main differences between the British and French school system, when I was there anyway, one, we don't have a uniform, which I quite like. And arguably, some people will say it's harder without a uniform because you get bullied for your clothes. But where I come from, pretty much nobody could afford nice clothes anyway. So if we were bullied, and we were, it wasn't for our clothes, it was for other stuff, because everybody was more or less wearing hand-me-downs. Timetables, so we were in school much longer. When I was in secondary school, my latest finish time was 6 o'clock p.m. I'd start at 8:20, have 4 lessons in the morning, go home for lunch because I lived really close to school, and then have between 2 and 4 lessons in the afternoon. So you have fewer lessons every day. We have longer holidays to make up for it. So every time we have a holiday in France, it's 2 weeks, not one. One in England, you go, summer holidays, then 1 week for October, then 2 weeks for Christmas, 1 week in the winter, 2 weeks for Easter, 1 week in May, and then summer. Well, in France, it's, summer, 2 weeks for winter, 2 weeks for Christmas, 2 weeks for after Christmas, 2 weeks for Easter, blah, blah, blah. And we also break up earlier for the summer holidays, so early July is when school is over. And exams are different. So in France, you go to secondary school for year 7, 8, 9, 10. At the end of year 10, you sit your brevet des collèges, which is the equivalent of the GCSE, if we want to put it roughly in the same sort of ballpark. And then you normally will change school and go to lycée, which is college, for your sixth form, or you can go to apprenticeships. And then in sixth form, you have year 11, 12, 13. In year 11, if you go to the general section, or that's what it used to be like. I think it's changed a lot nowadays, so it's not the same anymore. But in year 11, you had most options and most subjects, and you tried everything. So it was called the general year. And at the end of year 11, you chose your A-level options, and you could narrow it down. But you still had a lot more subjects in our baccalaureate, which is the French equivalent of A-level. So I think I had about 12 different subjects for my A-level, and I picked some extra options because they gave you bonus points, and I'm never going to say no to bonus points and more learning, so that was cool. And then on my personal notes, I went to schools that were rough. Our background was kind of rough. The facilities we had weren't very good at all, but I've been really, really, really lucky for what matters the most. I think in school, what matters the most really is the teachers that you have. And I've very rarely had teachers that didn't really care. I most of the time had teachers that were passionate, that were really excited to teach us, that cared about us, that we got on with. And that were trying their utmost best to give us the best possible education in an area where that wasn't really thought to be going to happen. We had a bit of, prejudice going on about us, to the extent that when I got to higher education, I was told to try and not sound like I came from where I come from, because that was going to narrow down my opportunities at a higher level, because of the prejudice against people that sound northern. So in a way it was rough. On the other hand, I feel like it's brilliant that it was, because it made me realize that I was lucky in the most important aspects of life. I had a loving family. I had a few really, really good friends. I got into horse riding eventually, which was a godsend. And I had teachers that cared, and I had access to education. I had access to books. I had access to a library. And that opened doors. So I'm grateful for the school life that I had. And I think all the hardships that we've had and the bullying that happened made me grow more empathetic and kinder, hopefully. And I don't know, it it was important, I think, to go through that stage for me. But that's probably also just down to that tendency to put meaning onto things after they've happened, because it's in the past, you can't change it anyway. So we have this tendency to try and assign meaning to things afterwards, because otherwise it's really difficult to deal with it. It's hard to deal with something and go, this was all meaningless. There was no point at all, and it happened, and it was painful, and it didn't do anything at all. That's a really difficult stance to have, but having the stance of this was difficult, this was painful, but I've learned from it and I've grown from it is a bit easier to live with. And even though I'm aware that it might just be me in my head assigning meaning, I don't care, because at the end of the day, it just makes it easier to live with. So I'll do it. Do you prefer horses or humans? It depends. If I lived only with horses, eventually I'd miss people. But when I'm only around people and I don't have any horses, I miss horses. So I need both. I just need both. Sometimes I'm just like, I need a break from people because people are complicated. Sometimes I just want horses because with them it's pretty simple. If you do comfortable and cool stuff with them, they like it and they're nice and that's it. Like they're a bit more straightforward. But sometimes you need people as well. And obviously I wouldn't teach if I didn't like people at all. So I love both. They're just completely different. Do a video about your class's struggles. I'd have to know exactly what the struggles are to be able to do a video about that. So if you have any particular struggles, put them down in the comments below and then I can see what I can do to help you out. And if that's not what the question meant, then I didn't understand your question. So clarify it below if it was yours and you fancy clarifying it. How many pets, including your horse, do you have? 2. I have my horse and my cat. So my horse is called Nello. You've seen him before in videos. And my cat is called Luma with an M for moustache. And you've seen her as well, I think, on a video. And this is it for the random questions. I had other questions, but they all require research, so I'm not going to answer them tonight. And this is a long enough video. It's like 19 minutes. This was supposed to be for the questions to celebrate 100 subscribers. I think we now have 119, so that's pretty cool. We're still slowly inching up, so let's see how far up we can go. Like this video if you liked this, if you liked it. This is difficult today. Liked this video if you liked it. Comment if you have anything that you fancy sharing. Share this video if you know other people that could be interested or curious, and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And I'll see you soon. Ciao!